Every outboard manual tells you exactly how to run your engine. Follow these steps, they say, and you'll get 2,000 hours of reliable service. But here's the problem. Some of the longest-lasting outboards in the world, engines pushing 6, 8, even 10,000 hours, were run by owners who broke those rules. Not out of laziness, out of experience. For decades, a quiet war has been brewing. On one side, factory engineers writing the manuals. On the other, the mechanics who actually crack these engines open after 5,000 hours of real-world abuse. And what they've found inside contradicts almost everything you've been told. Tonight, we're exposing 8 habits that technically violate manufacturer guidelines, but that seasoned professionals swear by. Some will surprise you. Others might make you question everything you thought you knew about outboard care. But before we dive in, I need to ask you something. Have you ever ignored your owner's manual and wondered if you made the right call? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm reading every single one. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and tap that bell, because what are you about to learn? The dealers won't tell you this. The manufacturers won't print it. But the proof is inside those engines. And we're about to show you. This isn't a theory. This is what actually works. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. The manual that came with your outboard, that thick booklet you maybe skimmed once and shoved in a drawer, wasn't written to help your engine last as long as possible. It was written to protect the company that built it. That's not cynicism. That's reality. Manufacturers write their guidelines for the lowest common denominator. They're thinking about the first-time boat owner who doesn't know the difference between port and starboard. They're thinking about liability lawsuits in 50 different countries. They're thinking about conditions they can't predict and users they'll never meet. A retired Mercury Marine engineer put it plainly in a 2019 industry interview. He said, "We write for the guy who buys his first boat at 45 and doesn't know anything. We can't assume knowledge, so we simplify. And sometimes, simplification costs performance." Read that again. Simplification costs performance. The people who design these engines know more than they're telling you, not because they're hiding secrets, but because the manual isn't a performance guide, it's a legal shield. It's the document they point to when something goes wrong and someone wants to blame them. But here's where it gets interesting. There's another group of people who know these engines intimately, not from designing them in climate-controlled labs, but from tearing them apart after thousands of hours of punishment. These are the mechanics, the rebuilders, the commercial operators who depend on their outboards for their livelihood. And when you listen to what they've learned, a different picture emerges. Down in Louisiana, shrimp boat captains routinely push Yamaha F250s past 8,000 hours. Their maintenance habits would make a dealer service manager nervous. In the Pacific Northwest, salmon charter captains run their engines 12 months a year, in conditions that would void most warranties. Yet somehow, their powerheads look cleaner at 5,000 hours than recreational engines look at 1,500. Why? Because these operators discovered something through decades of trial and error. They learned which rules matter and which ones don't. They learned that some manufacturer recommendations are sacred and others are just suggestions dressed up as requirements. This creates what you might call survivor bias in reverse. We usually assume that following the rules leads to the best outcomes. But in the marine world, the engines that last longest often belong to owners who selectively ignored the rule book. Not recklessly, strategically. The question is, what do they know that the rest of us don't? That's what we're here to uncover. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to examine 8 specific habits, practices that technically contradict official guidelines, but that experienced professionals swear by. We'll look at the evidence. We'll hear from the mechanics who've seen the inside of thousands of engines. And we'll separate the rules that protect your outboard from the rules that just protect the manufacturer. But let me be clear about something before we go further. This isn't about being reckless. It's not about ignoring maintenance or cutting corners to save a few dollars. The fundamentals still matter. Oil changes matter. Anodes matter. Impellers matter. What we're exploring is the space between the fundamentals and the fine print, the gray zone where experience trumps paperwork, and where the people who actually work on these machines have learned lessons that never made it into any owner's manual. So let's start with the most controversial habit of all, The one that makes dealer technicians cringe. The one that contradicts nearly every warm-up procedure you've ever read. It's about what happens in the first 60 seconds after you turn that key. Open any outboard manual, and you'll find some version of the same advice. Let your engine idle for 2 to 5 minutes before applying throttle. Yamaha's official guidance says to allow the engine to warm at idle speed for several minutes. Mercury says something similar. So does Honda. So does Suzuki. It sounds reasonable. Give the engine time to warm up. Let the oil circulate. Be gentle. But here's what the commercial guys figured out a long time ago. Prolonged idling on a cold engine doesn't protect it. In many cases, it actually causes damage. The engineering is straightforward. When an engine idles cold, combustion is incomplete. Fuel doesn't burn efficiently at low temperatures and low RPMs. That unburned fuel washes down the cylinder walls, diluting the oil film that protects the metal. Carbon builds up. Rings don't seat properly, and the engine never reaches the operating temperature it needs to function correctly. Modern outboards, anything fuel injected from the last 15 years, are designed for immediate oil circulation. The moment you turn that key, oil is moving, the pump is working, the system is pressurized. What the engine needs isn't time at idle, it needs heat. And heat comes from load. A Gulf Coast Yamaha specialist with over 30 years of experience put it this way. I've torn down engines from guys who babied them for 1,500 hours, and engines from shrimpers with 7,000 hours. The shrimpers' cylinders look better, every time. They load them up and go. Even Yamaha's own racing division understands this. During endurance testing, they run full throttle within 90 seconds of startup. Not because they're being reckless, because they know what these engines actually need. The takeaway isn't to slam the throttle immediately. It's to apply light load within the first minute, then build progressively over 2 or 3 minutes. Your engine needs oil pressure and operating temperature. Sitting at idle provides neither efficiently. Habit number 2, skipping the freshwater flush. After every use now, let's talk about something that might make saltwater boaters uncomfortable. Every manufacturer that sells outboards for marine use recommends flushing with fresh water after each trip in salt or brackish water. Mercury's manual is explicit. Flush with fresh water after every operation in salt, brackish, or polluted water. Every operation. No exceptions. But talk to the charter captains in the Florida Keys, people running their engines 6 days a week, 50 weeks a year, and you'll hear a different story. One captain running a fleet of Mercury Verados shared his approach. I run 6 days a week. I flush on Sunday, period. My 2017 Verado has 4,200 hours on it. Last impeller change, the water pump housing looked factory new. How is that possible? The answer lies in understanding what actually causes salt corrosion. It's not the presence of salt water in your cooling passages. It's the crystallization of salt after the water evaporates. When you run your engine regularly, every day or two, the salt water never fully dries. It stays in solution. It gets flushed out naturally the next time you run. The damage happens when salt water sits for weeks, evaporates completely, and leaves crystalline deposits that eat into aluminum and block passages. Modern outboards built after 2010 use improved alloys and protective coatings in their cooling systems. They're more resistant than older engines. And for operators who run frequently, the flush after every use rule may be overcautious. The key variable is dry time, not wet time. If you're a weekend warrior who only runs twice a month, flush religiously. But if you're on the water every few days, consolidating your flushes won't destroy your engine. The evidence says otherwise. Habit number 3, using non-OEM oil and filters. Walk into any dealership service department and ask about aftermarket oil. Watch the technician's face tighten. You'll hear words like warranty risk and not recommended. And we only use genuine products here. There's a reason for that. Dealers make money on OEM parts. It's not corruption, it's business. But it does mean the advice you're getting isn't always objective. Here's what they're not telling you. Most OEM oils aren't manufactured by the companies whose names are on the bottle. Mercury's four-stroke oil is blended by third-party refiners to Mercury's specifications. Yamaha does the same thing. So does Honda. The oil inside that expensive branded container often comes from the same facilities that produce aftermarket alternatives. What actually matters isn't the logo on the bottle, it's the certification. For four-stroke marine engines, look for FCW certification from the National Marine Manufacturers Association. For two-strokes, it's TCW3. These certifications mean the oil has been tested and approved for marine applications. It meets the standards your engine requires. A Pacific Northwest specialist who works on Yamaha and Honda outboards explained his approach. "I've been using Mobil 1 marine-rated oil for 15 years in customer engines. Never had a lubrication-related failure. The OEM stuff is fine, but so is quality aftermarket. Check the certifications, not the label." Independent laboratory testing supports this. Several aftermarket oils meeting FCW certification have shown wear protection equal to or better than their OEM counterparts. The chemistry is the same, only the marketing is different. The same principle applies to filters. OEM filters are quality products, but they're not magical. Aftermarket filters from reputable manufacturers like Sierra or Raker perform identically in independent testing. Save your money where the science says you can. Spend it where it actually matters. Habit number 4, running higher. Octane than recommended. Most outboard engines are rated for 87 octane, regular unleaded. The manuals are clear on this. Mercury states directly, using higher octane fuel than recommended does not improve performance. And for a brand new engine running in moderate conditions, that's probably true. But engines change over time. Carbon accumulates in combustion chambers. Compression characteristics shift. And operating environments vary wildly from the controlled conditions where engineers set their specifications. Higher octane fuel resists pre-detonation, that destructive knocking that happens when fuel ignites before the spark plug fires. In a new engine with clean chambers, 87 octane handles this fine. But in a high-hour engine with carbon buildup, or in extreme heat, the margin for error shrinks. Suzuki's own technical bulletins acknowledge this. For tropical markets with high ambient temperatures, they recommend 89 octane or higher. The same engine, the same design, but different fuel requirements based on conditions. A Texas Bay guide with over 6,000 hours on a single Suzuki DF250 shared his experience. "I switched to 91 octane around 2,000 hours. Ran smoother, especially in summer. That engine is still going strong." The cost difference between regular and mid-grade over a full boating season might be $100. Compare that to the cost of a powerhead rebuild after a detonation event. For high-hour engines in hot climates, the math favors better fuel. Habit number 5, changing gear oil annually. Instead of every 100 hours, manufacturer recommendations typically call for gear oil changes every 100 hours. It sounds like a lot, and for many recreational boaters, it is. Here's the reality most people don't understand. Your lower unit is a sealed system. Unlike engine oil, gear oil isn't contaminated by combustion byproducts. It doesn't break down the same way. A Great Lakes mechanic with 25 years of experience explained the real purpose of gear oil changes. "I'm not looking at the oil condition. I'm looking for water. That's the diagnostic, not the maintenance." Annual changes work fine for recreational users. The inspection matters more than the interval. Habit number 6, leaving the engine trimmed down. During storage, most storage guides tell you the same thing. Trim your outboard fully up. Let the water drain. Protect the lower unit from submersion. In freezing climates, this advice is absolutely correct. Water trapped in a lower unit will expand as it freezes, cracking housings and destroying gear cases. If you live anywhere that sees winter, trimming up is non-negotiable. But in temperate climates, Florida, the Gulf Coast, Southern California, much of Australia. The equation changes. Your trim system relies on hydraulic cylinders with rubber seals. Those seals need two things to stay healthy: compression and contact with hydraulic fluid. When you store your engine trimmed fully up for months at a time, those cylinder rams are extended. The seals sit exposed. They dry out. They shrink. And when spring comes, they leak. A hydraulic specialist at a Southeast marine repair shop sees this pattern constantly. I get more trim seal failures from guys who leave engines up for 6 months than from guys who leave them down. Those rams need compression. Seals need contact with fluid. Up position for months means dry seals. Dry seals mean leaks. The takeaway depends entirely on where you live. Freezing climate means trim up, always, after proper flushing and draining. Temperate climate means a down or mid position may actually preserve your hydraulic system better. One rule does not fit all conditions. Habit number 7, not fogging for winter storage. Fogging, spraying oil into the cylinders, and intake before long-term storage has been standard practice for decades. Every manufacturer recommends it. The purpose is simple: coat internal metal surfaces with protective oil to prevent rust while the engine sits dormant. For carbureted engines, this advice remains sound. Without fuel injection to precisely control the air-fuel mixture, carbureted engines are more vulnerable to the problems fogging prevents. But for modern fuel-injected outboards, the calculation has shifted. A Minnesota Yamaha specialist who focuses on EFI systems shared what he's observed. For carbureted engines, fog religiously. For modern EFI with stabilized fuel, stored in a dry space, away from salt air, I'd skip it. I've seen more fogging-related issues than corrosion issues in the last 10 years. The problem is what happens to fogging oil over time. It can carbonize on intake valves. It can gum up injectors. It can cause hard starts and rough running when the engine comes out of storage. If you've run stabilized fuel through the system, stored the engine in a climate-controlled environment, and you're not in a coastal salt air location, fogging may create more problems than it prevents. Context matters. Blanket rules don't account for modern technology. Habit number 8, running the tank low before refueling. Conventional wisdom says keep your fuel tank full. A full tank minimizes airspace, which reduces condensation. Less condensation means less water in your fuel. This makes sense, to a point. But there's a counter-argument that experienced operators understand. When you constantly top off your tank, old fuel mixes with new fuel indefinitely. The gasoline at the bottom of your tank might be months old, and ethanol-blended fuels, which is most fuel sold today, begin degrading within 30 days. A Lake Michigan charter captain explained his approach. I run to quarter tank, then fill. I want fresh fuel going through those injectors, not last summer's ethanol soup sitting at the bottom. For high-frequency users, running low before refueling ensures proper fuel rotation. The freshest fuel reaches your engine regularly. For infrequent users in humid climates, the condensation risk might outweigh this benefit. Know your usage pattern. Adjust accordingly. So now the question becomes, if these habits work, why don't the manuals tell you? The answer reveals something important about how the marine industry actually operates. The habits we've examined tonight aren't secrets because they're dangerous. They're secrets because the system isn't designed to share them. Manufacturers write for global markets. They're creating guidelines that need to work for a retiree in Minnesota, a commercial fisherman in Queensland, and a weekend cruiser in the Bahamas, all with the same document. That's an impossible task. So they default to the safest, most conservative recommendations they can justify. A marine industry consultant explained the corporate logic in 2023. No manufacturer will ever tell you to skip a flush or run harder from cold, even if their own engineers do it on their personal boats. The manual isn't a performance guide. It's a legal shield. This isn't about deception. It's about liability management in a world where lawsuits are expensive and uncertainty is everywhere. Then there's the dealer network. Dealership service departments are businesses. They profit from maintenance schedules. Every 100-hour service, every OEM oil change, every fogging procedure. These represent revenue. That doesn't make dealers dishonest. Most technicians genuinely care about the boats they service, but the system itself isn't optimized for maximum engine longevity. It's optimized for recurring revenue and warranty compliance. And finally, there's the knowledge gap. Factory engineers design engines in controlled environments. They run simulations. They conduct laboratory testing. They're brilliant at what they do. But they rarely see what happens after 10,000 hours of commercial abuse. They don't tear down engines from Louisiana shrimpers or Alaska charter boats. That knowledge lives with the mechanics, the rebuilders who've seen the inside of 500 lower units and can tell you exactly which habits correlate with longevity. Both groups are experts, but only one sees the long-term results of real-world use. Now, a word of caution. Everything we've discussed tonight comes with context. These habits work under specific conditions, for specific engines, in specific environments. Copying them blindly without understanding the variables can backfire. The shrimper's approach works for the shrimper because he's accumulated 40 years of experience reading his specific engine in his specific operating conditions. He knows what to listen for. He knows what to look for. He's earned the right to deviate from the manual through thousands of hours of careful observation. If you're going to adopt any of these practices, do it thoughtfully. Understand why the original rule exists before you decide to break it. Document your maintenance. Keep records. Know your rights under warranty law, and understand that non-standard practices, even beneficial ones, can complicate claims if something goes wrong. The golden rule remains: question the manual, but respect the machine. There's a phrase old mechanics use in shops and marinas around the world. They say, "The engine doesn't read the manual. It doesn't know what's technically correct. It doesn't care about warranty language or corporate liability concerns. It only knows what works, what keeps the pistons moving and the water flowing, hour after hour, season after season." The habits we've explored tonight aren't shortcuts. They're refinements. They're lessons written in worn cylinder walls and high-hour teardowns, passed down through whispered conversations in repair shops and arguments at fuel docks. They don't replace the fundamentals. They build on them. Manufacturers give you the floor. Experience shows you the ceiling. Next time, we're investigating something different. The outboards that were engineered to last forever, and the ones that weren't. Same price tag, same horsepower rating, radically different fates. That story, and what it reveals about how buying decisions really get made, is coming soon. Until then, question everything, trust experience, and take care of the machine that takes you where you need to go.